Welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon, Ben, and Andrew Rogers. Happy to be joined by Kevin Sjuts for this segment. Sports director at 1011 Now, at Kevin Sjuts on Twitter. Kevin, good morning. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you guys? Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Hey, would you send your kid out to catch a fly ball during the home run derby?
Yeah. If I didn't, I'd be a terrible dad.
What if he was like one that like wasn't overly athletic? I'm not like making assumptions about your boy now because I saw him throw a kid out at third the other day. But what if he got smoked in the face by a line drive like a little boy did this year?
But he's got a story to tell.
Oh, so it's all about the story. It's not about the protection.
Oh man, yeah, you let him go. Who would tell a kid not to do that, right?
I tell them that's what waivers are for.
That's so true.
This kind of flew under the radar, but when Coach Cook speaks, I listen. He called that dream camp the best talent that he had seen to date under that roof with that dream camp. Mm-hmm. Were you looking at when you hear him say that, you're like, well, yeah, I watch a lot of these youngsters play all the time. But that's kind of scary that so many of these girls are on Nebraska's radar, and he utters that sentiment.
Well, you think about who's gone to that camp in previous years, and truly was this year's camp more loaded than they had the number one ranked recruiting class a few years back, and it had basically I think it was 7 of the top 10 high school volleyball players on the court all at the same time. This was better. I mean, I'm not ever going to call John Cook a liar, but holy moly, if this year's campers were more impressive than the group 3 years ago, wow. And not to mention, I'm sure you guys saw some of the photos following the camp. A handful of the players that were there are already committed to Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
So,
three.
Get ready. I mean, we're just going to have to pull that file out every November, the one that says Nebraska signs the number one ranked recruiting class, and the number one prospect is fill in the blank, the number 2 prospect fill in the blank, and, oh, by the way, they got the best libero in the country. So, not saying that is what is going to happen, but it seems like there's potential for that essentially to just keep repeating itself. And whether it's Coach Cook or Jalen or Kelly, it seems like they just absolutely love that one camp. And what's really interesting about it was typically that camp is advertised on their camp website. This year, it was not. It was just lumped in with one of the other camps. So it was almost like, and it's an invite-only thing, So they know who they want to come, and they pretty much get whoever they want to come, unless there's, I'm guessing, a conflict.
Schedule conflict.
The individual schedule. Yep, exactly.
What a time to be representatives of the sport, right? Women's basketball is clicking, with popularity. People like Jazz Shelley. Volleyball is doing its thing. And then, of course, softball with like
it's going to be exciting.
Jordan Ball. I mean,
sports at Nebraska next year.
It's an exciting time, I think, for women's sports on campus again.
Yeah, when is it not? But this is like, I don't know. When you throw softball in the mix, it just seems like it is at a level that, I can't really remember. Because as you mentioned, DB, now it's all of them. Of course, volleyball, it always does its thing. And Amy Williams has had some fantastic teams. Getting Jazz Shelley to come back, and they have a really nice recruiting class, and excited to see what those newcomers can bring to the table on the basketball court. But now, maybe when Peaches James was on campus.
Yeah. How about the Q rating of like Shelley and Ball? Right? You talk about Pied Pipers.
Absolutely. And think about not to go down the NIL pipeline, but they have bona fide stars in the sport on campus all at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really adds to the juice of what's happening right now with Nebraska's women's athletics. Not to mention the track and field program. They just had a few national
El Champions.
Yeah, my goodness, they got it going on over there.
Kevin, getting back to volleyball here quickly, Jordan Larson postponed her retirement to go chase back-to-back golds in Paris.
Is this 4?
Is
This her 4th Olympics, Kevin?
Yes. Yeah, she has a bronze, a silver, and then she got the gold, in the postponed Tokyo Olympics, which was
That's
2020, but played in
years.
2021.
Oh,
Yeah,
I know.
so
4 times 4.
She is
Unbelievable.
going to go for a 4th Olympic medal. I don't know how many athletes have competed, no matter summer or winter or regardless of the sport. How many U.S. Olympians have competed in 4 Olympics? Jordan's going to go for it.
Well, you talked about a lot about like the recruiting aspect for volleyball, and not just Larson's presence on this coaching staff that could draw interest from recruits, but even with John Cook giving his full support to allow her to continue her playing career. Do you think that impacts her presence with Nebraska volleyball over the course of next year?
Yes, I think it'll impact it no matter whether she's retired or not, just her being who she is. I mean, I had the discussion last night at the workplace, when we were working on her story with Jordan announcing that she's going to go for the 2024 games. Like, she is the icon, right?
Yeah.
In the sport of volleyball.
Yep.
She's one of the greatest American volleyball players in the history of USA volleyball. And so it's almost like she would put John Cook in a shadow on some of these recruiting visits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're the recruit walking in and then you do the tour and you talk to the staff and then you walk away, you're next to mom and dad, what are you saying? I think the conversation might go like, oh my goodness, that was Jordan Larson, and like, oh, never mind, John Cook was right there as well, She just has that charm, the power, and yeah, I think she is the greatest indoor volleyball player in USA history. What was neat about my conversation with Jordan last night was she understands that she may not be the player next summer as she was in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And there seemed to be a spirit of she's okay with that because she thinks she can impact that team from the bench if that's the situation. Of course, she wants to play, but just from a training perspective and from a mental competitiveness, she can share some of her experience and she can help these girls because she played with really good players, but she doesn't know that she had that veteran voice and somebody who can really give her the mental advantage that she hopes to impart on her teammates when they go to Paris next year.
Something, nothing, interesting. Wait to see how it plays out with the Board of Regents' decision on the relationship and the responsibilities in terms of hierarchy with Ted Carter and the athletic department going forward at the university.
Well, let's just see how this plays out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways the way this could go, but Ted Carter, clearly he's got a lot of respect from everybody in that athletic department. It may not be as big of a deal as some people want it to be, because I still see that Ted Carter is going to give Trev Alberts a lot of autonomy with running the department. However, if what is being proposed goes through, he will have some fingerprints on everything, and he's got a mind for sports. So it's not like they're asking somebody that is well entrenched in academia to step outside their lines. Ted Carter, he does have that, but you're just allowing him to utilize his talents in a little different way than some of the previous presidents at Nebraska have.
If you operate under the guise that absolute power does not corrupt absolutely, could we take maybe some solace and go glass half full that after just in the wake of what we're seeing at Northwestern with maybe where does the autonomy lie and hands off versus not, that we may see things like this going forward in the future, just so people do have a better understanding of what's going on in the athletic department?
Yes, there does come some pretty hefty risks with that too.
Right.
So, as Northwestern is showing right now, if things go sour, if there is some sort of corruptness, you cannot just point the finger at a coach or an administrator or the athletic director. It will go all the way to the top, excluding possibly the chancellor, the university president. It's all about how it aligns, but there comes some pretty hefty risks with restructuring the way Nebraska potentially will do.
Kevin Sjuts, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. We'll talk again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Kev.
Sounds good. Happy Wednesday, boys.
You got it.
too. Sports director at 1011 Now at Kevin Sjuts on Twitter. Just thought
If
about
it
this.
passes, you won't be able to say I didn't know.
If I could give you one little prompt here as we go into the break, I wish I could ask Kevin this too. Make a bold prediction for me. Which Nebraska draft pick, and include Omaha here, has the best chance at seeing Major League Baseball time first?
Bryce Matthews.
I don't know if I'd say that. We'll take a short break.